everybody, my name's Poppy Cherry.
And I'm Maple Rose.
And we're here to just teach you a little bit about feather fans. Just before you get started, here's all the things you need to know about these absolutely luscious things that if you're not already in love with, you will be soon.
All right, so we're going to first start by talking you through all of the components of a feather fan. I'm going to put that one down so you guys can see these ones a little bit more. So most feather fans are made very similarly. Of course, they're going to be different kinds of staves, and we'll talk about that in a little second. But you're going to be looking at a set of staves, which usually come in either 10 or 12. You're looking at your rivet or your bolt that keeps them all together. And then we have a lacing. That is a piece of thread that laces through each of the staves to come across. And then, of course, we have the feathers themselves. Now you can have multiple layers of feathers or you can have single layers of feathers, and that's all going to depend on on how they're made.
Most of the fans that you're going to see that we're working with are ostrich feather fans. Certainly for the classes that we're teaching, you'll find that ostrich feather fans are going to be the most versatile in terms of the numbers of moves that you can do. But there certainly are some moves that you can do with a couple of more specialty fans, which is what Maple's going to show you those now.
So right here we have a pair of pheasant fans, which means that they're made from a different bird. They have the pheasant tails, and they're going to be a little bit snappier. So they're going to have a little less kind of float to them than, say, an ostrich feather would normally have. And you can also find an ostrich feather boa fan. So, of course, this is a lot more about using gravity, and they're made of boas instead of the feather fronds. And you're going to be having to use a lot of muscle to keep these guys up.
When they say light as a feather, they have no idea what they're talking about.
These are so these weigh each about maybe 3 kilos. And then once you start whipping them through the air, there's a lot of extra drag to them. So, of course, conditioning and training is really important once you start getting into bigger fans. Then, of course, there are other types of feather types like vegan feathers. You can even find peacock feathers as well. And of course, each feather type is going to move a little bit differently once you start playing around with them.
So we'd always encourage you, if you've got a different type of fan to the one that you're seeing us use in the video, that you adapt the moves into a way that makes sense for you, that makes sense for what you're working with and for your body on that day. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Wonderful. So what a lot of you are going to be using with is going to be probably a single layer fan. These are an example of a type of fan that you'll see quite commonly that uses an acrylic stave, and they're quite collapsible. So we'll also, when we're using these types of fans, need to work on how we hold them open with our fingers. As opposed to, you might see some bigger sized fans like these ones here, and I'll just flip it around so you can see. These ones can collapse a little bit, but they don't collapse to the same extent. And often you'll have these larger fans that you can actually fix open as well. And again, that's going to change how you dance. So Maple's showing you one that's fixed open. So my one is collapsing around.
Just being idiots as usual. Yeah. Awesome. The other main thing that you may notice is the different types of bolts that you can use. So these sets of staves are actually the same type of stave, but I'm using something that's a little bit smaller just because my hands are a little bit littler, and it means all of the staves are pushed together a little bit more, as poppies have a little bit more space in them, so that it's a little bit wider.
We'll have a separate class where we talk to you about building fans, but the other difference that you've got here is I've got more spaces in between the staves on my fan compared to Maple's, so that's part of what the difference is there. All of these things, these are all personal preference. We're not saying that any one of these things is going to be any better or worse than the other, and we encourage you to work with what you've got. So,
and of course, your price point as well. The more expensive a fan is, usually the more professional the staves are, and they're probably less breakable as well. So you're going to have to figure out where your budget sits and what's available to you.
Certainly if you are on a super budget, we do have a great video of Maple here teaching you how you can literally make them out of cardboard. So grab your old cardboard boxes at home. You can make yourself a fabulous pair of practice fans that you'll be able to use for just about all of the things that we're teaching here.
And of course, you will come across different stave styles as well. So most of the staves that we have here are Perspex staves. You can see they're a little bit clear. They also come in, say, sparkles or in opaque styles. And that's probably the most common because they're the easiest for people to cut and create for you. But there are two other styles of staves you may come by. One of them is being aluminum.
We call it aluminium.
I know, I was going to say that's the Canadian in me coming right on out. And of course, aluminum is a metal, so it's less likely to snap, unlike Perspex. It also has a little bit of a give to it, so it kind of floats through the air. And usually these are built for more custom style fans because you can actually custom cut some stave design specifically. Then, of course, there's also bamboo staves, which we don't have an option here for you to look at, but they are available for you. Some people like them because they float a little bit. We don't like them.
They tend to snap.
They tend to snap and sliver and give you slivers in your fingers. So, of course, you will find a preference that you prefer. I've seen dancers literally tape their bamboo staves up, and it means that they've never broken them. So there are many options available for you.
Wonderful. So what we're going to do now is just talk to you about how to hold your fans. So we're just going to take a moment. We'll get some of these out of the way and then we'll show you that. Okay, so now let's have a look at how do you hold your fans. If you're looking down at your fan, what you will see here is that the staves, assuming you have a set with staves, one type we didn't mention before is you might have something that's completely flat with no staves at all, which Maple's just going to show us. In which case, if that's what you have, you can ignore everything I'm saying. But if you've got a fan with staves, what you're going to see is the staves have a natural sort of staircase type progression that's going to open to one side. We say that there's no rules in fan dancing. We do like to say this a lot because a lot of this is about creativity. This is one rule. We have one rule, my friends. One rule. That's 2 fingers, but one rule. Our one rule in fan dancing, my friends, is that your top stave will always face away from your body when you're holding the fan. If you're calling this a staircase, it means the staircase goes and climbs up towards the outside of your body. It doesn't matter how I'm holding my fan, but this fan is always going to sit in this hand. Yeah? And this other fan is always going to sit in this hand. What it does is it allows you to keep the fan open. So if you want to try, get your fans like this and now switch hands and feel how not good funky that is, right? So it's very hard to hold the fans open in that grip. So we never do that way. We always have the other way so that the top stave is facing away from your body. Yep, so that's the first thing that you need to know, and that one is going to hold true no matter what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. The next thing that we have is we have 2 different grip styles that we can do. We refer to the style as being when you're holding the fan like I am and the feather is draping down towards the floor. When it's facing down towards the floor, if I put my thumb on top and I wrap it around there and I bring my fingers underneath, so I'll bring that just so you can see, we call that the neo grip style. Don't ask us where the name comes from, it's just what we call it. So that neo grip is my thumb is on top when the feathers face down towards the floor. The other grip style you might see us use is going to be the classic grip, which is feathers facing down towards the floor, and now my fingers are on top. So my thumb is on the underneath and my fingers are on top there. You can see my thumb on the underneath. So they're the 2 main grip styles you're going to see. As you progress and you learn some of the more advanced things, you'll learn some variations on these grips that are going to allow you to do some tricks. But when you're learning from a beginner perspective, these are the 2 grips you're going to need to know. Mm-hmm. Neo grip, thumbs on top, classic grip, fingers on top.
And of course, if you do have a set of feather fans that don't have the staircase, you are going to primarily be holding the fans in what we call the sandwich grip. And you can do the same kind of thing where, of course, you have either fingers or your thumb on top, because there'll usually always be a curl of the feather, but you're more about gripping between your thumb and your fingers like you're holding a sandwich. So if I was in, say, neo grip for this one, I'd have my thumb on top and my fingers underneath. So I can then again hold the fan in front and then reverse, fingers are on top in the classic grip, thumb underneath, but I'm not having to force with the fan open and my fingers can kind of stay a little bit closer together.
Wonderful. The other thing, just as a general rule, and we're going to tell you this over and over again, but be light with your grip. The lighter you are with the pressure that you're holding your staves with your fingers, the more easily you're going to move, the more graceful and elegant your moves are going to be, and the easier it's going to be when you start progressing to more difficult tricks, grip changes, all of those sorts of manipulations where you need to be able to move your hand quickly and easily around the fan. Also, it's going to be so much nicer on your joints. If you're clutching your fans for dear life, you're going to get real sore in here really, really fast. So thanks, Maple. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Loosen your grip. It's my dead fish. It's what I tell everyone to do before they pick up fans.
Okay.
So shake out your fingers. Make sure you got a nice loose grip, because then you're less prone to grab and you're more prone to just lift and pick up with just your fingers.
And as you go along, you're going to learn when you need to hold and when you can release. And this is something that will come with learning. But if you keep this principle in the back of your head, whenever you can release, you are releasing, that's going to help you over time. Okay, we've got one more thing we want to show you before we're going to let you loose and let you have a play with those feathers, and that is how to make sure your bolts are tight. This is really important because the more you use your fans, they're going to start to become loose, and you certainly don't want to have a situation whereby your fan falls apart while you're dancing. Generally, it's not going to happen quickly, but it can happen if you're not tightening them regularly. There's a couple of different kinds of bolts. The one that I've got in these particular fans here is called a Chicago screw. And what a Chicago screw has is it has one part that's the bolt, and then the little end part actually slots in and screws inside the main bolt. To tighten, if you've got this kind of screw on your fan, you'll notice that one side is flat and one side has a little line through it. What you're going to do is pop your thumb on the flat side, and I take a butter knife. If you ever want to ask me, I've got some funny stories about doing fan dancing in airports and butter knives in my handbag. Okay, but I'm going to take that butter knife and just righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So this one's actually already tight, but I'm just going to keep tightening until it doesn't move anymore, right? If I needed to undo it, I would just go the other way, and then I'll do the same on this one. So just, there we go, that one needed a little tighten. And that's all you need to do. I would encourage you to do this every time before you practice.
I would also encourage you, once you start getting into flow work, especially with me in the higher levels, that pretty much every time you stop, you just kind of do it with your fingers, because even that tiny little tightening with your fingers is going to help you and avoid catastrophe with your fan exploding on you as well.
Yeah.
Now, there are other options where you have a bolt with a nylon nut at the back, and of course the bolt there too, and you can really tighten it up, and like these ones you can actually lock them open. So I'm pressing pretty hard, and it's going to take a bit for me to close these, but it is handy to be able to know how to lock them open, because if you prefer to keep your fans locked open, the more you tighten them, of course, the more likely they're going to stay open. So you will need just a little spanner, and you will need a screwdriver that fits the head of your bolt as well. So this is a Phillips head. Sometimes they can be flat head as well. And I have a little mini travel set, but I usually prefer a bigger set because you got more torque to work with that. What you're going to do is you're going to get your spanner in the hand that has the nut on it, and of course your screwdriver on the other side, and you're literally going to tighten them up. Now these are already really tight, but you get the gist of it. You're going to keep going, and you're going to make sure they're really, really tight. Of course, depending on how your preference and how much you want them to open and close. But doing this regularly will also avoid you an explosion on stage for any other reason.
And you could always, with a fan like this, reverse the tightness and loosen them off if you wanted to pack them down for transport as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think we should get started. We'll see you in there.